Games that we grew up with hold a dear place in our heart, and no matter how crappy or how unloved that said game was, there's just something nostalgic that gives you a flush of emotions when you're booting it back up, seeing it on a screen. If you're an avid viewer of my channel, you probably know that I make a lot of Stardew Valley content. Well, I just realized that this game is now 9 years old, closing on to 10, but it's still a beloved game by the community and me. I'm pretty sure that even a couple of years down the line, hell, even 10, that this game would always hold a place in my heart. Even if it's forgotten later in the future, it'll always reappear when I take a trip down memory lane. Here are 5 games that I've held a deep appreciation for, and something that might tickle that nostalgia in your heart and your head.
We've got company. Break and attack.
Descent Free Space, or Decent Free Space, for somehow that's what I thought the game was called because I was barely 10 years old, was a game released in 1998 and one of the very first space fighting simulation games I played. I was barely in my teens when I played this, so I couldn't even make heads or tails of the story, but there was something so intriguing about it. StarCraft 1 played a huge part in it though, as I fell in love with StarCraft, and Descent Free Space for my pea-sized brain had so much similarities. There were 2 types of aliens, the Vasudans, which reminded me of the Protoss, and the Shivans, which you guessed it, reminded me of the Zerg. It didn't help that the human race was also called Terran. I mean, just looking them side by side in comparison, and you'll see why I think so. I swear, my child brain knew how to connect the dots and lines. Anyways, I'm sure our Lord channel will definitely explain the plot and story behind it better than I ever will, but if you don't want spoilers on the decades-year-old game, here is your warning right now. So, I will just summarize the hours of gameplay in a couple of sentences. Basically, the Terran and the Vasudans are at war, but basically they join forces together when the Shivans appear. The Shivans apparently are not evil by nature, but more of a force of nature, as they were created to exterminate high intelligence when they expanded too far in space. So basically they exterminated life when they needed pruning. One of the games that I would spend countless hours on procrastinating my homework in my elementary years was Sim Ant, a game that was released way back in 1991 by Maxis. Yes, that Maxis, the developers and creators of the Sims series. The game seems deceivingly easy at first as you tunnel your way into the ground and set up shop for future ant offsprings. It seems relatively straightforward, where you just gather food and build up your base fighting against the red ant colony, until you realize that you're struggling for survival against Mother Nature and the human that is the owner of the land you reside in. You have to protect your queen and your base from raids against the red ant colony, while simultaneously plotting your next strategy for the hive to further prosper. You control the breeding rates for what type of unit to produce and what they will prioritize, slowly gaining land and expanding your ant influence around the yard, and slowly progressing into the human's house. And if you have made it this far into the video, it would mean a lot to me if you would like and subscribe to the video. I've noticed that 90% of my viewers aren't subscribed, so if you want to help a struggling YouTuber out, it would mean the world to me if you subscribe and click the like button. And also tell me some games that you reminisce about in the comments down below. Anyways, enough self-shelling, let's get back to it.
Ian, you worry too much.
I'm pretty sure if you grew up in the 90s, you'd somewhat have a love or fear of dinosaurs. I mean, this was the generation that grew up and fell in love with Jurassic Park after all. And along that same vein, Chaos Island: The Lost World was a real-time strategy game released in 1997 based on the movie Jurassic Park: The Lost World. Like I previously mentioned, I had and still do have a love for StarCraft and RTS games, so when I found that this was RTS and had dinosaurs, the rest was pretty much history. You were able to choose a survivor and build up a base, making nests to hatch dinosaurs and buildings for protection and research. Personally, looking back at it right now from a logical perspective, it isn't as finely polished as a proper RTS should, lacking hotkeys and a lot of quality of life improvements, but because of the nostalgia and I guess Jurassic Park dinosaur hype, it was one of the few games that an adaptation of a movie that I thoroughly enjoyed, and I will admit it did tickle that little nostalgic itch that I have. Wow, another RTS game? Yes, if it wasn't blatantly obvious, I have a huge bias for real-time strategy. But these were the games that I grew up with and have a fond memory of, and I'm fingers crossed, I hope you do too. The Settlers series were something that I can recall ever so vividly, in my head and my heart. Settlers 3, released in 1998, was by far the best one in my books. Settlers 4 comes pretty close too. Yes, you can complain, you can argue with me on this, but it boils down to personal preference, and for me personally, it was my favorite. Reason being was that Settlers Free made a drastic graphical change from 2D to 3D. It may not look like much right now, but back then, the lustrous color palettes and the almost oil-colored scenery really left an impression. You could choose from 3 different races, ranging from the Romans, Egyptians, or Asians, being able to slowly build up a village and an economy, creating military might with weaponry and magic, slowly dominating your enemies while also maintaining an economy behind it by fishing and of the like, made the game feel just so alive. Another game that I spent on every computer lab session at school procrastinating was Comic Zone, spelled with an X, because being edgy like that was considered cool in the 90s, which was an awesome side-scrolling beat-em-up game released in 1995. I'm beginning to notice a pattern of me not paying attention at school, but that's besides the point. You take on the role of Sketch Turner, the protagonist, working on the comic book until one day, boom, lightning strikes the comic, warping you into its world and bringing what cannot be to life. And as we are all aware, like all thunderstorms in real life that can magically transport you to a fairy tale world, the opposite can be said true, as Mortis, the big bad of the said comic, comes to life taking control of the comic book and its pages. Like all comic book artists, Sketch Turner is also a master of the martial arts and able to easily fend off foes with his martial prowess, and usage of tools, items and equipment he can find lying conveniently on the ground for him. The story and mechanics were nothing groundbreaking, but for when it was released and because of my keen memories of it, it really was an awesome experience as you were literally fighting through the pages of the comic, becoming a true hero of the story. Bloody Roar, specifically Bloody Roar 2, was the title that introduced me to the Bloody Roar series. Sadly, this series is either cancelled or on an indefinite hold, but back then there was a huge hype around fighting games back at school, where everybody would either be busting out Tekken, Mortal Kombat, Killer Instinct, Street Fighter and of the like, and Bloody Roar 2 was one of the main competitors in the scene. Instead of your usual martial artists, you had your zoanthropes, humans that had the ability to turn into hybrid animal humanoids. The concept of humans transforming mid-combat was just so cool for my pea-sized brain back in the day. Playing Bloody Roar 2 now, the combat seems a little clunkier and janky than I used to remember, sort of feels like Virtual Fighter almost. My favorite character to play was Bakuryu, a human able to transform into a mole. The design in his combat technique was just so cool as it was a ninja assassin. I mean, just look at this guy and tell me that he's not awesome. Looking back at it right now with adult eyes, I still appreciate his design and was able to fall in love with this character again. I'm not gonna go through all the characters in this video, but one character that I would like to mention, need to mention, is Jenny. Jenny. The video game crush of so many teenage boys. How could I possibly ever have forgotten about you? Journey Berturi is a bad bat type zoanthrope who screams out sexy in spades. I mean, even without a transformation, she is still such an awesome character, but with a transformation, you know that should immediately capture the hearts of young men. I mean, back then we didn't have much raunchy media as it was still kinda considered taboo, so when she transformed, it just left us teenage boys stunned. Ape Escape was a 3D platform action-adventure game that had an awesome charm to it. To me back then, it was just such a stupid yet funny and wholesome game. It was awesome running around and using your gadgets to capture the monkeys that escape through time. The escape monkeys had cute little hats that bled off different siren signals, colors indicating the alarm level, which was a little neat mechanic that helped you strategize different options to neutralize them. Which is what I would like to say that I did, but for me it was usually me running in Leroy Jenkins style without a thought in the world. Surely if you run after them and bash them enough, they would surely become submissive and you would be able to catch them without too much trouble, right? Please don't call Petter on me. But I have to admit, the stun club was such an awesome weapon. I know its primary function isn't to harm the monkeys but to stun them, which allows the game to be kinda more kid friendly, but come on man, why don't we all admit what it looks like? A freaking lightsaber, baby. What can I say about Dink Smallwood? Yeah, you heard me right. I'm pretty sure a lot of you watching this video probably may have not even heard of this parody clone of Zelda, but this action role-playing adventure game was released in 1998 and captured my heart with its satirical humor and twisted sense of comedy. I mean, even from the game name alone, you can tell that this game will take you for a stupid ride now. Dink Smallwood? Doesn't it sound like a little too on the nose? Anyway, it for some reason to me portrayed a sense of realism. As from the start, you start off as a lowly pig farmer that is destined for greater things, learning magic and becoming a heroic but unconventional hero. Well, now that I say it like that, it doesn't sound like much realism at all, but the reason why I'm saying this is because from the start you're super weak, with nothing but your untrained fists to take out monsters. It takes a lot of blows just to take care of some bugs, and also when you eliminate your foes, the splash of viscera may be a little too unpalatable for your tastes, but it was freaking awesome to my childhood brain. I'm not sure YouTube would allow this kind of grotesque imagery, so I'm gonna have to censor this one just in case. If some old school satirical Zelda clone is something you're looking for, this may be right up your alley, so I won't spoil the game too much just in case you want to play it yourself. I never quite understood the story behind this wacky platforming adventure on Earthworm, but boy did it have its charm. The character design was so intriguing, it was basically a worm being superpowered by this futuristic astronaut-looking spacesuit. The dystopian setting with dark and edgy theme made it edgy enough for my teenage brain to power up on endorphins, consuming this media to my heart's content. The background and art design also somewhat reminded me of Day of the Tentacles. I'm not sure why, but I just had to bring that up. The game in itself was like if Rayman, Day of Tentacles, and Looney Tunes just had a baby together, a cocktail of a chaotic mess, but boy did I love it. Using your blaster to blast away enemies, and using your own wormy body to lasso and use as a whip. I never understood this concept though, as it kinda broke immersion of the game. Like, isn't the suit being powered and turned on because he's in it? Like, if his body leaves the suit when he's using his body to lasso as a whip, isn't that counterintuitive? I guess thinking about these kinds of logic in games is what will ruin the experience for us. So I guess as I'm not a lore channel nor a science one, I will let the experts explain that in their video. As for me, we're just here to reminisce. Side note, before leaving this game, I want to mention that I always thought of Earthworm Jim as a white blood cell for some reason. This is probably because for some reason, I thought the N64 version of Earthworm Jim made him as a white blood cell, fighting to save the human in the body that he was in. And before heading into the last game of the video, I want to give a quick but random honorable mention to none other than 3D Space Cadet Pinball. There's nothing too special about this game, but it does have a special place in my heart. And this was the go-to game which I would play while waiting at my dad's office or at the school computer lab. And just seeing this and hearing the sound effects of the old stoic online arcade pinball machine brings really back some heartfelt memories.
Out of my face. You're blocking my view. Shut up. Stop talking. Just go the hell away. All the world needs is me. I got my values. So you can keep yours, alright? I don't get people. Never have, never will.
What can I say about this game? Square Enix has always been one of my most favorite game companies, usually for their compelling story narratives and thematic design approach to their games. And The World Ends With You had all of that in spades. From its amazing art design and concepts to its unique characters and monsters to its awesome storytelling, this game left quite an impression in my heart. And replaying this gem of a game now, it still burns and shines bright till this day. I won't spoil the story and plot of this game too much, as I really encourage you to play this game if you haven't. That's how much of a good game it was. I truly envy you if you haven't, as I would love to replay this game without knowing its ending or its story beats. The game environment is one similar to that of modern day Japan. You take control of the main protagonist Neku, who is pretty much tossed into a death game, where you have to complete tasks and explore the city, and team up with unlikely partners to survive. With said partner, you'll be able to do combat simultaneously. This game was originally released for the Nintendo DS, so you would have two screens where combat takes place, Neko in the bottom where you control directly and your partner from the top. In Square Enix fashion, you'll be able to use magic and an array of weapons, that this time takes the form of pins. Certain pins are stronger in specific regions, and said pins can also level up. This unique battle system was quite a breath of fresh air, as not only did it look cool, but add to the story lore, and also was really well integrated into the game design. Since everything was so hip, putting on some fashion pins to be even hipper and gain powers was a cool system and idea. And quick note before ending this video, I do want to mention that these games, Populous, Little Fighter, Armies of Exigo, Primitive Wars, and Recettear are also some awesome classic games that I remember fondly, and I've already made videos about them, so if you want to and have some time, feel free to check them out. I'll leave the links down below. Now, I could make this list endless as there's so many more games that you and I remember ever so fondly, but the videos has to end somehow, so I'm gonna leave things here. If you would like to see me upload similar content to this, please let me know. And if there's any game that you would like me to go in depth and explore deeper, please let me know in the comments down below. And I'll be more than happy to make a full-length video on each individual game. This has been Recettear of the Indie Masters. Have a great day, everyone.